Good evening and welcome to a special edition of the Monday Night Panel on a Thursday. It's the 22nd of June and it's obviously a big day. It's been Fixture Day. So we thought we'd run a panel of our erstwhile fans to discuss where we'll all be travelling around the country over the next 9 months. Without further ado, let me bring Vic on. Vic, good evening. Hope you're well.
I'm very well, Andy. Thank you very much. We've gone past the summer solstice, so that means the football season is, well, almost here. Less than 2 weeks to go before our first pre-season friendly. Amazing, isn't it?
Indeed, yes. So, lots to talk about tonight because not only is it the league fixtures that have been released, it's the EFL Trophy and the Cup. So lots to talk about. So without further ado, let me bring our erstwhile guests on. Good evening, Nick.
Good evening.
All the way from Delaware, but he's back in Swindon now. Good evening, Mark. Hope you're well.
Good evening, all. Hello.
Good evening.
Yeah. Good evening, Rob.
Hello.
Rushing. And last but not least, good evening, Johnny. Hope you're well. Are you on mute or you're all good? Yeah. Right. Well, I'll leave you and to get on with it, and I'll see you on the other side. All the best.
Andy, thanks very much indeed. I think we'll go around the panel just to introduce ourselves once again, because obviously it's the start of a brand new season. So those who might not have caught the panel before, we seem to have lost Johnny for a moment. We'll get him back shortly. We'll find out a little bit about those people with us. We will say we've got a new recruit tonight, Nick Fatali from the United States of America. Nick, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I live in Delaware. Milford, Delaware. I work for a club called Delmarva Rush. The Rush organisation actually is the biggest soccer club in the world. You've got branches all over the world. In America, they're huge. I think there's about 50-odd branches, 55 branches in America. So we all help sort of smaller clubs, and we were a smaller club in Delaware, and it was really good. I moved there last August, and we just become Delmarva Rush, May of this year, to help us develop. They have curriculums and pathways that we never had. So, and I love it there. It's really good. But I'm a Swindon fan.
I was going to say, you're a massive Swindon Town fan.
Oh, so yeah. Swindon's my love.
That's the reason you're on here. Well, lovely to have you along, and we'll no doubt, it'd be nice to talk to you from the United States at some point throughout the course.
Yeah, I'll definitely come back on any time.
Thank you. Mark Merriman, hello to you. Hello. Remind us a little bit about yourself. We know you well, but just remind us.
Yeah, so I'm Mark Merriman. I'm a secondary school teacher in Chippenham, a lifetime Swindon Town fan. My dad took me to the county ground in 1974 when I was 9 years old, and I've never looked back since. And we've gone through thin and thinner, haven't we, during those times? So, yeah, that's me, really.
Yeah, fair enough. Rob, 5,450 games consecutively, it seems like. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, not quite that many, Vic, but it does feel like it sometimes, especially watching the town, doesn't it? But similar to Mark, lifelong town fan, obviously been helping out BBC Wilts and Swindon with commentaries over the years as well, as coming on here and generally supporting everything that goes on down at the club. And what are we now? So I think it's 1986, Halifax away was the last game that, barring those good old COVID days, that I missed. So I think I've seen more than enough of those ups and downs that Mark spoke about a few minutes ago.
Yeah, there's been a lot of ups and downs, mainly downs at the moment, but hopefully the ups will come. Johnny, a little bit about yourself. A man who's had a very busy day, I suspect, making sense of what we've seen today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm like everyone else, I'm a Swindon fan. Have been since, I think my first game was Stoke at home in about 2001. I think I was like 7. Can't remember. I think we lost 2-0. And for some reason, I thought it was great, so we should keep going back. My dad took me. Obviously, I now work for the Adver. Try to do my best, spinning 100 plates with just 2 hands. Just try to make sense of everything that goes on at Swindon, which is not easy.
Well, I've got a question for you straight away, actually, because Pete Lango, who, by the way, says hello to you, Nick, because he knows you from some years ago, former youth player, of course, Pete. When does the team report back for training? Is it next week?
It's the 28th, I believe. I think they're back. Is it like the Wednesday? What are we on now? Is it Wednesday? It's the 28th. I don't know what day that is. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Right, Sean says, let's start off with a bit of positivity. Looking at our opponents in the opening fixture, defeat looking likely. So let's go through those fixtures, the first month anyway, of league fixtures. Colchester United away, that's the opener on the 5th of August. On the 12th, it's Crewe at home, that's the first home match. On a Tuesday night, it is Forest Green away on the 15th. Then it's Wrexham away on the 19th. And then rounding up the month in the league, the 26th of August is Crawley at home. But of course, there's Peterborough United away in the League Cup. I assume that will be on the Tuesday following the 5th. So there we are. Right, let's go round the panel. Nick, never easy to start off with an away game. And it's a tough one against Ben Garner's team. Your thoughts on that first month?
It's a hard month. It is a hard month. But, you know, the new manager coming in, I got positive vibes for this season. Well, it can't be no worse than last. That's what you're hoping for. So, and if you can get a good, that's always the thing. If you can get a good start, it will set you up for the season. But that is a hard month to start. But then Swindon, the funny thing with Swindon, they do well against the good teams, and the lower team, you think this is a bank of 3 points, is where they lose it. So it drives you crazy with it. So. And it's funny, in the first month, they got the 2 ex-managers, and they Crawley and Colchester. Yeah. So that and then Wrexham in there, Forest Green, a local derby. So it's a good first month. It really is.
Yeah, we'll go through October in a little while, which on paper looks a very difficult month. Mark, your thoughts on that opening few games of the season? It's always nice to get a home game, first of all, but you get what you get, don't you?
Seem to have been away, don't we? I think the last 3 seasons we've been away. Haven't we? Scunthorpe and Harrogate. Was that Harrogate last year? Yeah. And now Colchester. So I was kind of banking on a home game. And of course, we must beat the Colchester voodoo, mustn't we? Because we absolutely jinxed when it comes to Colchester. I shouldn't say it really, but it would be nice to go there and get a spawny 1-0 win, really, wouldn't it? Crewe at home, you'd like to think that would be 3 points. Everybody's saying that Wrexham are going to walk the league. I don't think that happens. I think that's an optimistic shout from a side that obviously going to be very well backed financially. Yeah, I agree with Nick. It does look an exciting month, a tough month. But I feel quite positive. We're still obviously going to need some signings, but we're not starting from scratch, are we? Like we have done in the last couple of seasons with about 6 or 8 players. I think Johnny will confirm something like 16 or 18 signed on currently, something like that. So we're really looking at probably another half a dozen signings: goalkeeper, centre forward, centre half, midfielder, that kind of thing, to consolidate. And I can see us doing well this year.
Well, lots of comments coming in already. So let's have a look. Lee says, I think it's going to be a long slog of a season. Malcolm says, what's all the fuss about? We have to play everyone sometime. Oh, for the days when we huddle around the radio to hear the FA Cup draw. FA Cup draw. What is that again? Tony says, hope we treat all cup fixtures with seriously, as reference to Walsall last year, very weak side. Kevin says, looking forward to my northern trips on Barnes coaches. Is it our year? Please all say yes. Opening few games look tough. Forest Green and Wrexham away. That's from Steve. Rob, I mean, we've been here before. Opening day of the season is away at Colchester. I kind of like that part of the summer when you don't know who you're playing, but you also look forward to the day when you find out who you're playing. It's a strange old time, isn't it?
Yeah, always is, isn't it? And you just get that enthusiasm back, don't you? As soon as you see the fixtures come out, we were a little bit browbeaten, I think, for a good part of last season, especially with effectively our chances of finding our way. Not sure who that one is, but there we go. Finding our way through the back end of the season with nothing really to play for. It feels like we've already had a long lead into the start of this season because we didn't really have anything to play for 2 or 3 months at the end of last year. So there is the enthusiasm there. 4 away games in 5 to start when you add in Peterborough.
Yeah,
you couldn't really have written that any worse for you, could you? Let's be honest. I mean, you said earlier on you want the home game first. You certainly want to get a decent game at home, which is going to drag the fans in. I don't think Crewe really fits the bill for that. So Crawley, okay, it's got Lindsay factor, but again, we had that at the back end of last year, so that's not really a big game either. So we've sort of missed the boat a little bit in terms of home fixtures, I think, in the early stages of the season. But there is some exciting away trips. It's got to be said. I mean, Forest Green whatever everyone thinks about them, is our nearest and dearest for the rest of this season. So we've got to make the most of that. Wrexham, well, we all know the circus that's going to surround them all season. So the fact that we're away first against them rather than at home, I think is a blessing, really, just to get that out of the way, and then we can start the real season once all that hullabaloo is out of the way.
Well, we'll talk about a home game on Boxing Day a little later, which is bound to get a bit of attention, I would imagine. Johnny, it's a question for you, actually. Steve says, it's not difficult to report on signings at the moment. I mean, my view of this is contracts don't finish till the 30th of June, do they? And I'm kind of being slightly optimistic in as much that work must be going on behind the scenes. I mean, from what you've found out in this early stage, what do you reckon?
Well, I mean, yeah, they must be doing business. I know Mike Flint is phone on holiday. Just because he's on holiday, he doesn't think that means anything these days. He's still doing his work. Spoke to Rob the other day, and he made a fair point. Whether you agree with it or not, it is a fair point. Early business doesn't always mean good business. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But just because you sign players early, doesn't give you, doesn't increase your odds of promotion. Obviously, it helps in a little, in terms of mixing and building relationships. But it's not the end of the world. I understand that obviously it's getting a bit frustrating now. Even I'm starting to think something's got to happen, sooner or later, because we are getting towards pre-season now, and you don't really want. You'd rather have the nucleus of a group that you're going to take forward. I don't know how many of the guys that are currently under contract, some of them might not be here come September the 2nd. So. Yeah, I'd hope that something starts happening either tomorrow or the early period of next week, because I think everyone's a bit tense at the moment, aren't they?
Well, as you said, they're back in training next Wednesday, so you would hope things would start to happen by the time they come back to pre-season. What are your thoughts on that opening month? I'll go through the EFL Trophy fixtures in a minute, but that opening month, as Rob has said, a lot of away travels already in that first few weeks. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, like I sort of said, on the blog and what have you, in terms of, yeah, it's difficult. It probably is quite hard whether we've got a squad knit together by then or not. But they're interesting games. Like, they've all got stories kind of attached to them, which is helpful. You've obviously got Colchester, where for whatever reason we just never seem to win, and it's always cold. Maybe a change of climate helps change the result. You never know. Yeah, then you've obviously got Crewe at home. It's always the first home game, so there'll be a lot of optimism. A lot of people will be seeing Mike Flynn's team for the first time, properly in a competitive fixture. So, hopefully you can kind of, just kick off with a win at home at least, because our home form, obviously, I can't remember how far it goes back, but it's basically been quite horrible.
Not good.
No. You've got local derby, the big one at Wrexham. I think, everyone that goes to Wrexham is going to feel like that's the problem that Wrexham are going to have. Everyone think, it's the circus around them. Everyone else in League Two sort of had their nose put out of joint a bit. It feels, it's a bit, it's all the Wrexham. Any time the word League Two is mentioned, it's shortly followed by Wrexham, and the other 23 teams are like, what about us? So maybe we get them early. They might not be, they could have had a couple of confidence knocking results. They might not find it as easy as they thought they might find it. And then maybe we can kind of continue that. And then, if you've obviously got Crawley and at home with the Scott Lindsay. The only one I'm a bit disappointed with is the League Cup, because you always have a chance to sort of either have a big championship team where people haven't been for a while, or maybe get a League Two team that you might be able to knock out and potentially get Spurs or Chelsea. But I think we've got literally one of the worst fixtures we could have had, because it's away, it's against a very good League One team, but they're not that big where everyone feels like they have to go. And I don't see our League Cup hoodoo ending there. Although I'd like to be wrong, because, no lead's a good lead for Peterborough, is it?
Just to remind you that, of course, we played the minimum amount of games we possibly could last year, 46 league games, 5 cup ties, including 3 in the EFL Trophy. So that was our cup record last season, which was pretty appalling. And in the EFL Trophy, it's Arsenal under-21s first at home in September. I think it's the 5th of the 9th. In October, the 10th of the 10th, it's our first visit to Reading for a long, long time. And then on the 14th of the 11th, it'll be Exeter City at home. But for those of us who live 6 miles away from Exeter, it would have been lovely if it had been Exeter City away. I'd just like to say that and get my groan out straight away. And Nick, can I come to you about the Wrexham factor? Because obviously you live in the States and there is a huge American influence and the way they're marketed and things like that. I mean, are they big news in America or is it overhyped here?
No, they're getting bigger all the time. And see, I used to live in Philly, and that's what that Rob. See, everyone thinks of Wrexham, of the Deadpool guy, but Rob McCracken, the other guy, he was the big sports fan, and he's from Philadelphia, so he's massive. He's a big Philly Eagles fan because Philly's a crazy state for sports. It's unbelievable state to watch sport in. So, and that's where the World Cup. That's why it was obviously going to get a World Cup thing there. So it is big. Wrexham, you get Wrexham shirts now, like you can get Man United in sports stores. So it has got really big over there. But like Stockport last year, everyone thought Stockport was going to run away with it, and they never did. And I think I could see Wrexham being a bit the same like that. But it is a big thing over there because of the 2 stars. You know, Ryan Reynolds is a huge star, so it's always going to make it, you know, put it on the map because of who he is, and then his influences by doing that program and everything that goes with it. So a lot of people now more know of Wrexham because how big them 2 are.
Goodness me. A couple of Hollywood stars, eh? And that's how it works out. I mean, it's interesting. I wonder whether, Mark, Wrexham will be everybody's cup final. So therefore, they might find the season a little bit more difficult than they think they might. We should also mention, of course, Notts County. I'll get to them in a minute. But, you know, those are the teams who've come up. And they look decent, both of them, don't they?
Yeah, they do. You know, the teams that come up, if you think about teams that have come up from the National League in the last few years, they tend to have momentum, Vic, don't they? And they sometimes go on and win that league and then another one. I mean, the classic example of that, of course, is Luton, who are now in the Premiership. And 6-7 years ago, they were in the National League. It was just crazy, isn't it, really? I agree with Nick, though, because a lot of people are sort of fancying Wrexham to, you know, completely smash the league. And Stockport didn't do it. And I'm wondering as well whether Wrexham might find it as easy as people are making out. They also have the Phil Parkinson factor. He didn't win anything, has he, in the league? He's won the National League and been absolutely back to the hilt financially. And now he's coming back into the league. Could prove me wrong. They might get 120 points. But I agree with Nick. I think they're probably going to find it tougher than they think. I don't think any team walks through the league. And Vic, I agree with what you're saying about Notts County. I think they will be strong, although Luke Williams.
Yeah.
We didn't rate him when he was at Swindon, did we? It was sideways pedestrian football. I don't know. I think our football's going to be different, and I think I want to talk about Swindon Town rather than Wrexham and Notts County. And Swindon Town, I think, with Mike Flynn, are going to do a lot better than Swindon Town with Jody Morris. Yeah,
Phil Parkinson, of course, was manager of Charlton, if I remember right, in the playoffs, wasn't he, when we got through to Wembley? Yeah. And John Bostock, of course, former Swindon man, missed that penalty in the playoff final as well, you might remember, in a dramatic fashion. Lots of comments coming in. We have the basis of a half-decent side. A few good signings will do the world of good, and a manager that brings passion and desire will help massively. I've spoken to Wayne Hatswell, the assistant, of course. Both him and Flynn are buzzing. Can't wait to get going. That's from Pete. Let's have a look. What will come first, a new kit or a new signing, says Steve. Interesting question, as we've seen neither. Let me go through October then, Rob. This is a toughie, I think. On the 3rd of October, we've got Notts County away, the aforementioned. Then on the 7th, Bradford away. On the 14th, return for Mike Flynn to Newport, will be at the county ground, a return to playing against his former team, of course, for Mike Flynn. That's at home on the 14th. Salford away on the 21st of October. 24th of October, Gillingham at home. And then on the 28th of October, MK Dons away. Now, Gillingham, of course, recently signed Johnny Williams. They're a bit of an unknown factor because, again, they've got American owners, I think, and we assume that they'll have money to splash about and there'll be a big part of the League Two campaign. What are your thoughts on that month? Looks tough on paper.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you can go through the fixtures individually, like you've just done there, and read them out, and they're tough fixtures with more away games than home. But the home fixtures that month are tough as well. I mean, when you think you had Gillingham's financial clout this summer, they clearly improved their side massively from the first half of the season to the second half of the season, with just a little bit of influence from those American owners towards the very back end of the transfer window. So you'd be very, very surprised if Gillingham aren't a much, much better side this year. You're always going to find teams like MK Dons, Bradford, Salford are always going to be considered to be favourites for promotion, just because of the financial clout at Salford, because of the support that they've got at Bradford, and obviously you've got MK Dons, who probably are, as a club, too big for the division that they're in. So all of those are going to be difficult. And once you add the Luke Williams Notts County factor in there as well, and the Mike Flynn, former manager of Newport, in there, then all 6 of those games look like they're problematical on paper. But Mark's just made the most relevant point. We don't want to look at everyone else. We want to look at ourselves. And if we can start to play the type of football that Mike Flynn was playing at Newport, none of those fixtures are going to frighten me. All of those fixtures are potential points games for us. And you go back to the Wrexham scenario, to a big extent, they're a one-trick pony. Get the ball to Paul Mullin, he scores. Throw the ball into the penalty area with a long throw and hope it comes off. There's not a lot else to that Wrexham team. Defensively, they're not very good. They got a lot of work to do. So I don't back this Wrexham are going to walk the league scenario either. I think they might actually have a season of, not only a season of consolidation, I think it might be bottom half of the table.
Wow, I wonder how many games Sky will put on then. That'll be interesting, won't it?
It will still be their entire season.
Yeah, they'll be. Yeah, absolutely. Them and Salford, they're the only 2 really. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, let's get your thoughts on that, Johnny. New kit or new signing, which is going to come first? Because we haven't got a new kit yet, have we? So, what are you hearing?
I will say signing first.
Right. Okay. Well, fair enough. Well, I think we can safely assume the home kit will be red, won't it?
People keep asking me what colour it's going to be, and I say red. Red,
yeah, I would think so. What are your thoughts on October then? Is that it seems stupid, but is that a season-defining month, or is it too early to say that?
Potentially. The only thing I would say is I'm sure last year we had a really hard October as well, where I remember looking at the start of the month going, if we get literally any points out of that, I'll be more than happy. And that was after we come off with like a pretty decent September as well. And I think we ended up smashing Mansfield and obviously beat Bradford.
It drew in Bradford. Yeah.
Smashed Mansfield. I think we beat Hartlepool at home. Can't remember who else we had, but I think we actually did really well. So this is the thing, isn't it? You can sort of, you can have your guesses and make your predictions, and then ultimately it rarely comes off the way you think. So will it be season defining? I don't think a month is that season defining, because kind of going back to Stockport, everyone said they were going to walk the league last year and they finished like a house on fire, and they were obviously really unlucky not to go up. But they literally didn't start until like December. They just did not get going at all. I think they'd lost. They went on something like after they lost or drew to us, or I can't remember what it was, before Christmas. They'd gone on like a 6-8 game like winless run. So, and they still made it. I think League 2 is going to be really competitive next year. So even if you have a bad month, I think you can still, if you beat the teams, the right teams at the right time, then you can always sort of stick in there. And it would just be about, like, if we come through August and September kind of playing well and things look quite cohesive, and a couple of signings make the difference, then who knows? You can go into those fixtures thinking, like, why not? And there's literally no one to fear, because they're League 2 teams for a reason. We're not playing Man City every week.
Tony says, well, I've backed Swindon for promotion at 25-1. Decent odds. Watching Notts County in the playoff final for 75 minutes sent shivers down my spine. Luke Williams, tippy-tappy. Need to make the county ground into a fortress. About time we had a decent home form. I'm fairly confident, different style of football. Nick, you're watching from afar, obviously. How difficult is that to do? Because I guess you use iFollow, things like that, but how difficult is it to do that?
Well, for me, it's hard because on a Saturday mornings I do a lot of coaching. So we're 5 hours behind. So we at our club we have a rec program for 7 weeks that start in September. So I try and bring my iPad, but on these fields right at the back and beyond, I can't usually get a good reception. But I always bring my iPad, and I try and set it up on my iPad. So as I'm doing bits and pieces, I can always go back to my iPad and stuff like. And even in this winter, I've done a winter academy, but I was in a school. So I had a good Saturday. So I had the game going on. And every time I looked, because last season wasn't a great season. But with iFollow, you can always get it. You know, if I'm off, I'll always watch it on iFollow. But the problem with iFollow, it's been around for years and it's still not the greatest coverage. The amount of times you go on there, and it frustrates me because it's usually the Swindon game that's playing up. And you think, why is you'll have no sound on there? And then you go on another game and they got sound. You think, what's wrong with Swindon? Well, you know, sometimes it's been good fun. We got banter with a couple of guys on the thing saying it's obviously Swindon game's going to crash because everyone wants to watch Swindon. And the other guys are commenting, no, you're not. So it's a bit, you know, but with iFollow, you can watch it all the time, so which is good. So I watch it as best as I can. So I'm always want to try and, or I'm on, you know, checking the score and everything. But you can get it with iFollow.
I'll tell you what it sounds off because Rob does co-commentary on it sometimes. And not to mention the spinning white circle. You must get that quite a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So we're into October then, Nick. You know, that's a decent set of games, isn't it? I mean, it's easy to say that's a tough game, but we might sail through it and get, you know, 12 points out of it. You don't know, do you? You just
no. And I think Swindon are going to have a good season this year. And like I said, if you're going to go up, you've got to beat them all. You don't fear anybody. You got to go into it saying, look, we're gonna. These are exciting games, but as a player, you know, I'm playing years ago. You want to play the top teams. They're the games you want to play. They're the exciting games that you want to play. That does look a tough month. It really does. But again, going into it, I do think it's going to be a lot tougher season this year than last. I thought last year was a poor, because Swindon losing all those games and still having a chance in March to make the play. You're thinking this should never happen. They should be way out of it. But they were still in with a shout. You're thinking shows you how poor the league was. But I think this is a stronger league this year. But you got to play those teams, and it's exciting, I think, for players play against those teams.
Yeah, it was a very poor season, finishing 10th, of course, and the football wasn't exciting by any means. I'm looking at November here, Mark. A couple of away games to mention. Harrogate away on the 18th of November. Accrington on a Tuesday night, the 28th of November, away. We love those, Rob, don't we?
That's just Rob's resolve.
Yeah, I will be there. There's a nice chippy at Accrington. But the thing is, those are the games, aren't they, Mark, that you got to dig in and go to and get points if you're going to go up. Yeah,
you have. Yeah, you've got to dig in and get a 1-0 or something, sneak a 2-1 win or something like that. And absolutely right, Vic. And none of those games are easy, are they? Accrington on a Tuesday, you can imagine it's going to be windswept, cold, all of that stuff. And you just have to go there and grind it out. But ask yourself this. Could a Jody Morris team grind it out better than a Mike Flynn team? No, not in my opinion. I think the thing about Mike Flynn as well is a lot of people perhaps haven't remembered or forgotten is that Mike Flynn built cup teams. We talked about the cup earlier on in this discussion, and he had great success with his cup teams in Newport for several years. And I'd actually like to think we could go to Peterborough in the first round of the Carabao and beat them, and then get somebody decent in the second and third round. That might be a pipe dream, might be a load of nonsense, but we've got to start being a cup team again. That's been a disaster for the last, I want to say 5 years, but probably more like 10. To only play 5 cup games last year, it's a disgrace. I went to Walsall for the first game, and that's when I started having doubts about Scott Lindsay straight away, because I was looking at that thinking, why are you playing a weakened team in a competition which Swindon Town have won, albeit a long time ago? That just didn't sit right with me at all from the very outset. Losing 2-0, just going out with a whimper. I don't want that. I want us to be a cup team as well as decent in the league.
Yeah, every month is tough, up and down the M5, M6, M62, M1. Yes, there's a lot of that involved. Accrington, if I remember rightly, Rob, the last time we went there was snow on the ground, wasn't there? If I remember rightly, and it was very cold. And Hayden Jackson rather did for us, if I remember rightly, on that very cold Tuesdays. Is that right? Am I
Katie
thinking?
Jackson, yeah, it is.
Yeah,
He was. It was 2 visits, wasn't it? Because we were outside.
Yeah,
the
outside the ground when it was off.
and it got postponed at about 1:15 or something like that. And back we came again in February, and it was probably colder than it was in December, to be quite honest. And it was a hideous game to watch. I don't think there's ever been a decent game at Accrington in the whole history of Accrington's football club, to be quite honest. It's just a hideous place to go. So, yeah, one to look forward to in November. And to be honest, I'm just looking further on. We've got Gillingham away on a Tuesday night on that lovely open terrace. You can just imagine in February what that's going to be like, can't you? We may well have to, there probably will be 3 or 4 people go down with hypothermia. Our winter fixtures have finished, but hopefully that it won't happen. But it's just you look at those fixtures, then those of us who travel everywhere always look for the Tuesday night fixtures. You know where you got to go. Not too bad. Forest Green, big tick in the box, that one. Notts County away on a Tuesday night, okay, that's not too bad. That's okay. We've done that before now. But Accrington and Gillingham take the biscuit. The one consolation I do have, and this is something that's changed over recent years, and I am all for it. Pretty much every team that you play away on a Tuesday night come to your place on a Tuesday night. That's much, much fairer than it used to be when you used to end up going to Carlisle on a Tuesday night and find out that their Tuesday night trip was Hartlepool.
Yeah,
it's not quite so fair that way.
No, Harrogate, of course, away last year. Well, it was July the 31st, so it didn't really count as part of the season, did it? Still pre-season, right? As I was concerned, it was a horrible game, if I remember rightly. Now, I was going to go. Question for Johnny. This is from Charlie. You kind of already partially answered this. Any news or rumours on players yet?
No news and not a lot of rumours, to be honest. It's pretty.
Is that a good thing, though? I kind of think if you're sort of saying we're after so and so, we're after so and so, we're after so, that immediately alerts other clubs, doesn't it? And they pitch in. I mean, look at the Johnny Williams situation, for instance. He was set to sign for Bradford, gone up there, done the medical, put him up in a hotel, signing for Bradford. No, I'm off to Gillingham. So, is it a bad thing that it's quiet?
No, really not. It's frustrating. I get that because you kind of want to hear, so and so's linked, but ultimately when that happens, that alerts other teams. They might not have been exactly on their radar, but then if you see like a league rival going to sign someone that you were kind of on the fence about, then you may reconsider. The only thing really the sort of difficult aspect, as it usually is with agents, because agents like to shop their players around, and the more people that kind of know about it, the better. Obviously, it's up to the club to try and keep it as quiet as possible, but Town haven't really been that good at that in the last few years. So I hope that like it's days like this year, hopefully they're actually doing something and they're keeping it quiet rather than there's literally nothing to talk about and they're happy to tell anyone that wants to know.
And of course, players are sitting by their phones as well, aren't they? Ones whose contracts come up on the 30th of June, they're sitting by phones. It's that simple, isn't it? Waiting for people to get in touch, I guess.
I would imagine so, yeah. I mean, you sort of, I guess they'd be, trying to do some sort of due diligence before just dipping into the free agent market, because there's, certain players that while they might be available, if you look at them again and see, do they fit in? Are they the sort of character that you want in your team? And then you realize actually they're not. It's better off taking the time to find that out before and then realizing that you've got, a player who's going to sort of cause a divide in the dressing room. So, again, I hope they're doing some work. I'm sure they are, but who's doing that work apart from Mike Flynn? Who knows?
We'll find out, I'm sure. Hi, Dave the Chair. Hello to you. If Charlie stays fit and hungry, plus given the service, anything is possible this year. Well, fair enough. Hello, Glyn. This is a question for me. Going to all the home and away games we live, how many miles do you clock up? Well, it was 17,000 last year. So I'm not sure whether that's good or insane. I'm not really sure which is which, really. Right, let's go into December then, Nick, because I'm looking at this. Now, Barrow features, but this time we're not going to Barrow in December. We're at home to Barrow in December on the 16th. These are the Christmas fixtures. You might think that's good, but 2 days before Christmas, we're going to Tranmere on the 23rd of December. Just imagine all those people travelling from one end of the country to another on a Saturday just before Christmas. Fabulous. Boxing Day, of course, is the aforementioned big game, and I'm sure it's going to be an absolute sellout. Wrexham at home, and then 3 days later, Forest Green at home. So in a way, apart from the long trip to Tranmere, that's quite an attractive set of fixtures, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's good, over Christmas, really staying local, especially the Wrexham and Forest Green. For the Christmas fans, that should be two big games, big bumper packages for them. Tranmere, I know it's up sort of Liverpool way, so it's not, the traffic up there is always a pain. But and Barrow at home. So I think, and then, even Wimbledon away, it's only London area. So I think that's a good month of fixtures, fans to go. So, hopefully I might be back at Christmas. So I'd definitely go, if I was back at Barrow, I'd go there, and I'd be tempted to go to Tranmere. I like doing the away games. I think it's good fun, the away games. I love going to away games for Swindon. And then definitely do the Wrexham and Forest Green. Yeah, I think that's a good set of fixtures. Fans will be happy with that over the Christmas period.
Well, I tell you, that we discovered a very good cafe at Tranmere last season. Really good, about 100 yards from the ground. Really, really good. So if you are making the trip, look out for that cafe.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. More messages coming in. It's insane is the answer to your question, says PJ. Yeah, you're probably right. Hello to Emma. Wayne Ashley William Marchant is looking forward to Swindon versus Arsenal under 21s. I know he is, as he's an Arsenal fan. So we'll let him off that one. I don't know. It does look an attractive December to me, Mark. I look at those. At least it's not a trip to Barrow when you're thinking, is it on? Is it off? Is it on? Is it off?
Yeah.
But they do look. That's a good run of fixtures over Christmas.
Yeah. I agree with Nick. I like to get the away games in. I'm a bit of a sad act. I record all the away grounds I've been to over the years and keep a list of them. And I do count, by the way, grounds that I've been to, even though they're not in the league anymore.
Yes. Despite
what other people might think, and I've never, to my great shame, done Tranmere. Great shame. I never got there on that famous playoff occasion in '93, whenever it was. And I haven't been to Wimbledon either. So, might certainly think about doing one, if not both of those, depending on how we're doing, really. Yeah, it is. And the Wrexham game will be an attractive game. We'll see what's that, more or less halfway through the season by then, Vic? Sort of 20 plus games by then. It'll give us a pretty good chance to see. It's a good yardstick to see where we're going to be and where other teams are going to be by that point, really.
Yeah, and Forest Green on the 29th sees the year out, of course. So I think, Rob, you'd look at that and you see that's a pretty decent... I mean, you're going to have a long trip over Christmas anyway, aren't you? Looking at the teams in the league, those are, they're inevitable. You've got to play them, so, it's that. But that does look a decent run.
Yeah, I fear with their history, we might see Tranmere switch to a Friday night before Christmas, especially with the last Christmas shopping day. That's Saturday as well. Yeah. So I'll look out for that one and blame me, obviously, if that turns out to be the case. But yeah, I think the Wrexham fans will be absolutely up in arms about the fact they got to travel all the way down to Swindon on Boxing Day. I don't think they'll be too chuffed about that, but it's a good draw for us, I have to say. And they will be the first team we'll have played twice in the division, won't they, over the course of this season? So that in itself says you get rid of Wrexham as early as you possibly can, which I think before the next transfer window, because I suspect they'll do a lot of business in January, Wrexham. So for us to have got rid of them before then, I think may very well be a real bonus for us. But yeah, and Forest Green as well. They're two home games before Christmas, and let's be honest, the New Year's Day game at Crawley, okay, it's a little bit of a trek, but there's a lot of fans that always make that trek to Crawley anyway. Yeah. So that one's not too bad. So all in all, I think we could have done an awful lot worse out of those December fixtures, but let's just temper it a little bit because we could have a second round FA Cup tie in there, of course. I know.
Sorry, what?
Absolutely, but we could have a second round FA Cup tie, which we'll be spending more away with our track record.
Yeah, that's true. I was just thinking, actually, as you were saying about the moving of fixtures, I wonder Wrexham might be moved about for our friends at satellite TV. They might fancy that on Boxing Day, mightn't they?
2 a.m. Yeah. The following day or something like that.
5:30 kickoff or something. I don't know. We'll see. Are you looking forward to Christmas already, Johnny? I mean, it's ridiculous, really. It's 30 degrees nearly outside, sun's shining, fabulous. I had a day at the cricket on Monday, which was amazing. I know, cricket is a big thing in your life as well. So we're talking about Christmas. What do you think?
Am I looking forward to freezing my fingers off? No, I'm not. There's so many times throughout last season where I was sat there, the game's not great, we're not playing very well, and I'm thinking, pretend it's warm, just pretend it's warm. So I'm hanging on to these warm months for as long as possible. Thank you very much. But yeah, like the guys have said, I think Wimbledon and Tranmere is quite covered, even like for the away fans, and for us in the media, it's pretty covered. So providing the weather's coming from the right direction and not sort of your left as you're an away fan, it might not be too bad. He says, 6-7 months out, but yeah, again, got a lot of them at home. Obviously, Barrow at home is an absolute dream. Yes. When I saw Barrow in December, I thought, you have got to be joking me, not again. But yeah, bowled it up at home. So what a result.
Yeah, fair enough. Actually, the highlight of the game at Tranmere last year was that lightning in the last minute, I think, wasn't it? If I remember rightly, nothing else happened.
It was when the fourth official held up the board, wasn't it, to say how many minutes of stoppage time there were, and everybody wanted 0 because it was such a dire game. It was almost as if the lightning bolt just came down from above to tell him that was absolutely the wrong decision.
Well, we were all saying, for goodness sake, referee, take him off and don't come back. Yeah. Mark says, Ian says, Gareth Bale could be playing for Wrexham next season. But now I'm going to do this because Mark says, I think I'm already somewhat bored of hearing about Wrexham. I guess we will have to get used to it. Media darlings. Well, they are. There's no question about that. So we won't mention them again. All right, that's it. We'll draw a line under Wrexham. Can I ask what the panel's genuine expectations are for this season? I'll just run through the Easter fixtures. Of course, as Rob has mentioned, Crawley away on New Year's Day. Easter, Notts County at home, and then Sutton away. And I'm just wondering whether that's the first time we will play them during the day. If it is during the day on Easter Monday, it would be, wouldn't it? Because they've been night games up until now. So what are your genuine expectations this season, Nick? What do you think?
I'm always positive. My glass is always half full. So I would say minimum playoffs, if not automatic promotion. That's my goal, would be minimum playoffs for Swindon. They've always been, done reasonably well in this division and always been up and around it. And I think now with the manager, and let's be honest, Charlie Austin, he's got to be the best striker in that league. If he gets the service, he's going to score goals for you. So to me, we've got the thing every club wants is a goal scorer. And I think we've got the best in the league. So if we can get that service right to him, the manager seems good. He's experienced in this league. So I think minimum playoffs. I think we can get a top 3, go up automatic. But I'm always that positive.
Well, that'll do. I don't mind that at all. You can be as positive as you want. Charlie Austin is a factor, isn't he, Mark? He didn't have a pre-season last year. He was in Australia, wasn't he? And came back. And let's be honest, like all our forwards, they spent most of the time waiting for the ball to arrive at some point in the near future, and they never did. So I can't believe that Mike Flynn's got Charlie Austin in the team and won't play to his strengths.
Yeah, you strikers last year making about 500 runs before he even got the ball. He was playing in midfield or left wing half the game, wasn't he? Because he wasn't getting the ball at all. It's going to depend if he keeps fit. I've got to remember he's 33. Not that that's too old to be, to play in League Two and do well. I do think though he can't shoulder the burden on his own. We've got Hepburn, Murphy, and Austin as 2 decent strikers, but I do think we're crying out for a target man, somebody who can take the weight off Charlie. Control the ball back to goal, lay the ball off. I think we know, don't we, that we haven't got the physicality or didn't have it last year, arguably before that as well. And I don't think Flynn will make that mistake. He's going to bring in several, decent-sized footballers, a centre-half, a centre-forward. You'd hope, wouldn't you? Because physically, in my opinion, we're still not equipped for this league. We're still too lightweight. And we need to battle. Mike Flynn teams are generally not lightweight teams. So we need to find 4 or 5 signings that can, ply their trade in the league, play good football, but also are physical enough to survive.
Nick is starting his dancing for Glastonbury by the look of it.
No, my thing, laptop's getting flat. I've got to get the charger.
What
are you going to ask me?
We shouldn't forget Jake Wakeling, of course, who will have had a
Yeah,
season under his
true.
belt. He'll get a decent pre-season. I mean, he could become a factor, couldn't he? By the way, Ian says FA Cup game versus Darlington away, Rob. The last time we played Darlington, of course, in the FA Cup.
Yeah, let's not talk about that one.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? I mean, Wakeling got a decent amount of goals last year for a first-time striker. He looked tired at the end, and I'm not surprised. There were a lot of those players looked tired at the end. They'd not played a league season before. So he's going to develop this year, isn't he?
That's a huge point, Vic, when you consider what our chances are for this season. We were putting out a rookie team for an awful long part of, certainly a long time during into the season. Last year, you looked at the side that we had and you thought there's very few who've actually gone through and experienced a whole campaign before. And obviously, we focus on the Charlie Austins of this world, but you look at what we lost in that January transfer window in terms of experience in the centre of that midfield, the Louis Reeds, the Ben Gladwins, the supply line effectively was cut off to the forwards. So it's no great surprise, really, that we were struggling significantly towards the back end of the season. And that's where I'm sure Mike Flynn is going to do a lot of his business. Mark's hit the nail on the head. We'll be more physical. I don't think there's any doubt at all about that. He knows the percentages games in this division. You don't win the game by playing 60% football in your own half and in your own penalty area. That's not going to get you promoted. You need to get the ball forward, not necessarily long ball, but you need to get the ball forward into areas where you're going to hurt the opposition. Long throw-ins. We've seen every team against us over the course of the last 5 or 6 years bunging the ball in from 50 yards away. We're going to get a lot more of that next year. You need defenders who can defend that. And we haven't had that over recent years. And I'm sure Mike Flynn's experience at this level will find us far more equipped to be able to compete against a lot of those sort of sides. Whether that's good enough for us to make our way towards the top 7 or hopefully the top 3, I'm not sure yet, because I just don't think we've seen enough about what the signings are going to be for this season to really make any great predictions. But I'm very hopeful that we've got somebody at the helm who knows what we need as a supporter and a fan base. And I think he will put out a team that will be much more in line with what our expectations are. Whether they're successful or not, time will tell. But I'm very optimistic that we'll be far, far more competitive this season.
It'd be interesting to see if we do play a more Route 1 based game, which I don't have a problem with Route 1 football. I just kind of think, if you've got to play direct, you've got to play direct. And I think we've seen one or two. I mean, Man City in the cup final, for goodness sake, you can't get much more direct than that, can you, after 12 seconds? That took everybody by surprise. So, I just think, we might have to get used to it. And in that case, if it brings results, who cares? A couple of questions for you, Johnny. Is the manager still on holiday, and do you speak to him on a regular basis? And will Hutton stay? I mean, I've got to say, we had him on once, right just after he'd been appointed. We were very impressed with him, really positive, wants to get engaged with the fan base, which I think is something we've missed, certainly in the latter stages of the last season, with the manager being engaged with the fan base. So those are all positives. I mean, have you had regular dealings with him?
I haven't actually met him yet because I had gone on holiday literally the hour after the season finished. I just couldn't wait to get away. No, but I'd gone on holiday the day after, so I sort of missed his appointment shock. And then I'm actually speaking to him tomorrow. We've got like a media. I think it's literally just to sort of an update, really. Obviously, we didn't get to speak to. Who was here last year? Scott, I guess, because the manager thing took so long. But I think it's just sort of an update, kind of to meet him. I don't think a couple of us have met him yet. So we'll find out. He's not on holiday. Yeah, he's back now. So yeah, we'll find out what his plans are, how things are going. And by all accounts, I've heard from other reporters, part of NewsQuest, that he's a really good guy to deal with. He's really honest, sort of gives you good answers. He is passionate. I know that he is really genuinely excited to have this job. Potentially the Walsall job just wasn't the right suit, wasn't the right fit for him. And I think this one, he feels like this is genuinely a really good fit for him. So hopefully everything works out and he does really well here.
Yeah, and of course he's got an assistant manager who's Swindon boy, so that's got to be a good thing. Will Hutton stay? That was the other question. What do you?
Will Hutton stay? Will Hutton stay? I think I'm gonna avoid the question basically, and just if it was up to me, and I do like Hutton, but if it was up to me, I'd sell him because a lot of the time, and this I may end up being well off, but a lot of the time when players at League One and League Two level, especially League Two, have a really good season like he did, they're unlikely to repeat it again. He's 25, is he? I think he's 23, 24, 25. I can't remember. But he's unlikely to have another. If you're playing the percentage game, you're playing the sort of, do I think he'll do that again? Probably not. I would sell him. You've got Lavinia as a backup. You've got, defensive. There are defensive options. You can obviously bring fullbacks in. They're considerably cheaper than strikers. And when every team's looking for a striker. Like everyone said, we've already got one. Maybe we probably need. We almost certainly need one more at least. But the money that doesn't need to be spent on the striker, you can spend elsewhere. And if you kind of reshape the squad, I think a bit suspect defensively. I think Lavinia's also a bit suspect defensively, but also if you're going to play a 5, then it doesn't matter as much. So will he stay? Toss of a coin. I don't know what Town are going to do. Don't really know what they think is the best course of action. But if it was up to me, then I would cash in and reinvest the money elsewhere in the squad.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good answer. The most important stat in a game is the full-time score. Simple. So play what formation, etc., that gets you the result. Why do some fans consider reaching the playoffs as a successful season? Only if you win them. Well, fair point. Well made. Right, the season wraps up like this. The final away game of the season is at Grimsby. And then the final home game of the season is at Morecambe. So there we are. Let's hope, Nick, that by the time we come to those two particular games, we are at least in contention. That's all you can ask for, isn't it, at that stage of the season?
Yeah, that's what you want. 'Cause it keeps your season going, doesn't it? It keeps the excitement going to the end of the season. And that's what you want. You want to be in contention. Realistically, you want to be in contention for automatic, not playoffs. A club of Swindon size, it's got to be automatics. And you want to be in contention for automatics up to then, so it keeps the season going all the way. But this season, as bad as the season was, and it was such a bad season, and it just fell away so early in the end. It was sort of, before you knew it, you thought, well, that's it, it's over with. So you want this to go. And to me, it's contention, not for playoffs like it was this season. We were thinking, we can make the playoffs. To me, it should be contentions for automatic. It's Swindon, that big a club, they should be. I think they're one of the biggest clubs in this division, and that's what they got to be aiming for. That's got to be your target, not playoffs. Like someone said, yeah, all right, we'd be happy with the playoffs at the worst case scenario, but you've got to go for the top 3 in automatic.
Yeah, I'm sure the manager would want to go along with that. I mean, I would say, Mark, if you compare the end of this season to the end of the previous season, when we had that fabulous day out at Walsall, won 3-0, got into playoffs, etc., and then that dreadful day at Port Vale, that's what the playoffs do for you. But I would imagine the manager is aiming for the top 3. He's got to be, hasn't he?
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, I think when you look at Mike Flynn's jobs, have been as a manager, he's been at Newport and Walsall and now at Swindon. With the greatest respect to the other 2 football clubs, this is easily his biggest job, isn't it? I mean, we're a much bigger side than those 2, with a much bigger fan base, better potential. So yeah, I agree with Nick that you've got to be aiming for top 3. His history as a manager, he's got Newport into the playoffs, I believe, twice, and they lost twice. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So he knows what it's about. He knows what the league's about. He's got experience. He's not going to play tippy-tappy. There's a lot of things that stand in his favour. Hopefully he gets well backed by the board, by Clem. You can go into the season when you hit the ground running and make I think it's important that we make a decent start. Aim for the top 3 and see where it takes us. I think that's probably got to be absolutely realistic.
I don't disagree with Johnny. This is from Mark in terms of one season wonders, but I feel Hutton would be a great asset for at least another season. So there we are. That's what Mark
He got
thinks
12
about.
assists, didn't he, Vic? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing with Hutton.
Yeah.
Players like that don't come along, you know, at the drop of a hat. He's a good player. Whether he can go on, I can see what Johnny's saying. You cash in on him, but at the same time, he's the perfect foil for Charlie Austin. You want people to put balls in the box. 12 assists is no mean feat, is it? From right fullback or right wing back.
I think if I remember rightly, I was just trying to remember one sumptuous cross he put in from the right hand side for
Grimsby,
Charlie.
probably Charlie's first goal, wasn't it? Was it that?
Yeah,
one?
and he also put one in front at the town end, and it didn't get converted. If I remember, it was an absolute perfect cross. I mean, he's got that ability. Sonny, you were going to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the point I was sort of making ultimately is a massive gamble. Like, it's a gamble, but those are the sort of decisions that can turn your season. You can be happy with potentially getting in the playoffs. You never know. If you keep him, could end up getting you automatically promoted. He may end up having a terrible season. Who knows? The one thing I would say about him is I feel like the flack that he was getting towards the end of the season was so unfair. He basically made a joke. He made a joke, and people just reacted to it so badly. People react however they want, but I thought he made a joke about being on the beach. Like, that's how he deals with it. I think that's a sense of humor. I get some people didn't quite get it because they don't know him. But I'd hope that if he does stay past September the 2nd, and I'm not against him staying for sure, I'd hope that people sort of forget that and just, he's our player, so you need to get on his side. There's no point bashing people on Twitter because they made a joke which you didn't quite get. Like, he's our player, so you got to support him to the hill ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, the point. Looking forward to the fish and chips in Grimsby, says Kevin. Yeah, they're good. The chips are good. Hopefully, Mike will stay for a long time. Stability. That is, Rob. That is what we need, isn't it? I mean, goodness me. If ever a football club needs a manager to stick around for 3-4 years, it's this one. Surely.
I wonder how many times over the course of the last year
we've said that. Yeah, I know.
said the word stability.
Yeah.
Remember us saying it at the very back end of last year, and within a matter of minutes, we'd lost a manager and we'd lost half the team to go with it as well. So,
yeah,
absolutely, Vic. It's the buzzword that we all just hope and pray, I think, happens this year. We get a good enough start under Mike Flynn for him not to be under pressure early. Because let's be honest, we are a big club. We expect to be towards the top end of this division. And it's right and proper. We should have that expectation. Club of our size, we shouldn't be in this league. We should be in the league above. There's no doubt at all about that. So it's right that there is expectation, and with expectation comes that little bit more pressure, and he's going to have to deal with that. Probably more pressure than he's had at the other clubs he's been managing before. So it will be different. It will be different for him this time around. But we absolutely must back him for a longer period. There's no doubt about that. We can't just turn on our players and turn on our manager in the way that we've done over recent years if we want to be a successful side. The sides that have got promoted, everyone's pulling in the same direction. And it just feels like, other than that lovely honeymoon 3 or 4 months we had at the start of last season where we got somewhere a lot further forward than we expected, everyone still seems to be wanting to drag us down all the time from different directions. And we can't have that. We need to be unified as a club now. I will say one other thing quickly, Vic, by the way. You very skillfully mentioned Grimsby away on our last away game. You conveniently ignored Barrow away as the next last away game.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you very much, Fixture.
I know.
But can I just say there, but the problem you have there as well, if we do well, and hopefully we will, then higher league clubs will be coming for your manager. That's the scenario.
Yeah, it is.
Success, but in success means you lose.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It
is. That's always that's the sad thing about it. You go all the way back to, when Glenn Hoddle, we get to the Premier League and we lose Glenn Hoddle, we lose our captain. You think if we could have kept that side together, we could have probably done well in the Premier League. But the bigger teams come in, and it's hard. There's such a short career for these people, players and managers. When they get a bigger offer, they sort of got to take it. It's just the way the game is, isn't it? That's the problem.
I'm going to wrap this up with this question from Malcolm. He says, $64,000 question, will Clem back the manager? Well, there's only 2 people who know that, really. So I don't know whether you want to take a quick guess on that, Nick, will he?
I think he will. He's come in, he's been great for what he's done, and, been involved with the clubs? In my opinion, I'd say yes, he will.
Mark?
Yeah, he's. Well, I think they've realised they made a big mistake. They appointed Jody Morris as a waste of time. It was 18 games and 4 wins. Nobody enjoyed the football they were playing. He wasn't really interested in being at Swindon. So I think he will back the manager, but I think he'll do so astutely, and I don't think he'll do it by throwing loads of money at it. I think he's a shrewd businessman, and we'll cut our cloth accordingly. But he has to back the manager, otherwise why appoint him?
Yeah. It won't be a Di Canio style backing, will it, Rob?
No, I think it will be steady as she goes. I think it's probably the way to be. I think it will be, if Mike Flynn wants a target and it's within our price range, I'm sure Clem will back him. But he certainly won't be throwing money away willy-nilly. And I think we all know there are other priorities at our football club to bring the ground up to speed as well. So you can't just immediately throw all the toys out of the pram because we're not spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on players. This is a League Two club at the moment. Financially, 2 years ago we were on the brink of oblivion. So don't expect massive signings. Not going to happen. But that still doesn't mean you can't wheel and deal extremely successfully at this level.
Sure. You don't get stability without success, says Sean. Andy says the minority of our fans want us to fail so they can spend their Saturday moaning. As Swindon fans, we've been through very challenging times like everyone else. I desperately want us to win this out of this league. I hope Mike Flynn is the right fit for us and we can start to make some positive signings in the coming weeks. Fingers crossed. From what you know, will he back the manager, Johnny?
I think he's got to, hasn't he? He's like everyone else has said. He's made 2 years in now. He's had 4 managers. That's too many. You can't he probably got slightly lucky, dare I say it, with Garner. I'm not sure anyone saw that playing out as well as it did. I think I still stand by that Lindsay actually would have been a decent appointment if he'd have just done it straight away and gone, this is what we want. He's the right guy. He believes in our values, and he just got off to a bad start and then he was never going to recover from there. I think the JD Morris one obviously was the temptation of, it was almost like I got it so wrong with Lindsay. I'm going to go the other end of the scale, which was also wrong. I think it was sort of a knock-on mistake. Hopefully he learns. I feel like this is the type of appointment everyone's been calling out for. You want someone who knows the league, who's experienced, he's a steady hand, who can work with a smaller budget. I don't know exactly what the budget is. You hear the word promotion banded around, but for me, the numbers can't add up because we nearly lost the club 2 years ago, so that doesn't make sense. But I feel like he is the right guy right now, and Clem has to, and like Mark said, he will back him astutely because he is a good businessman. So it's about being smart with it, and he'll obviously never put the club at risk with the money that he spends, but it's about, if we need to maybe push the boat out to sign a couple of difference makers, being prepared to do that, because you can't, I don't think you can really achieve success without taking a few risks. And we're not gonna get out of the league, especially in a league this competitive. You're not going to get out of the league by bringing in a load of average League Two players and hoping they gel. You've kind of got to spend a bit of money, and I think if you're going to go up against a Wrexham, a Stockport, a Newport County, a Mansfield, I mean the list goes on in terms of the clubs that are willing to spend a bit of money, you're probably going to have to match them in certain areas. I think for us it would have to be centre midfield, and we've got to go after a couple of big centre midfielders, not in terms of stature necessarily, but in terms of quality. And then I feel that will allow Flynn to do what he does, and he's shown he can achieve success, and that'll be that will be Clem then backing him.
Lovely. Good session tonight, says Steve. Chaps, and not a beard in sight. Thanks. Well, Johnny's kind of got a little bit going on there. And there's Andy with a beard. And don't forget, Fools Rush In on Friday night. I think there's plenty of beards around there at 9 o'clock. So if you're a fan of beards, they're your men. Just finally, I just wanted to have a quick word, because you are kind of coordinating the American group of the Swindon Supporters Club. Is that right? You are the man responsible for bringing the states together.
Wow.
Vic, I've got to go. Sorry to interrupt, Nick. I've got to
No.
go. So I'm playing football in about 20 minutes.
Oh,
So
off you
and
go.
it's
Then.
not walking.
Cheers,
It's not
Mark.
walking football. Before you say anything, all right?
Yeah, steady. For those
Nice
of
to
us
see
who-
you
Start, Mark.
All
all the
best.
best, Mark. Cheers.
Bye.
Sorry, Nick. Yeah, go on. Off you go.
Yeah, well, I said I'd get involved and help out wherever I can and what needs to be done. So it was just trying to get the message out there. And I've had a couple of people. There's actually another guy in Wilmington, Delaware, who got in touch with me. He's a Swindon fan, which was quite sort of surprising. But the problem with Delaware, it's not a big soccer state. So there ain't like sports bars. Philly is unbelievable for it. You could get them. But where I used to live in Philly, there was a bar there. It was a Liverpool supporter sort of thing. But where I am, it is hard to try and generate where can we go and watch games. I ain't seen a bar that really shows it. The games over there. But yeah, I want to try and build some rapport of Swindon Supporter Club, in America if I can.
Well, that'd be fabulous if you get that sorted out, and then we can get a pre-season tour to America, can't we? That'd be lovely. That'd be great. There you are, Andy, man with a beard. Thank you very much.
Yes, the odd man out. Yeah, thank you very much. We're back again on Monday.
I think we're back again on Monday. I should say thanks to Mark, who's been helping with the questions tonight. So thank you.
Yes,
Mark.
indeed. Yeah, we're back on Monday. I believe we have hopefully a repeat from one that was called off a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, we hopefully got Marcus Cassidy on Monday. He couldn't do the other day because there was a massive storm where he lives and it knocked out all his electricity, basically. So that was the reason. So hopefully Monday. Yeah.
I thought he was out cutting his grass. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was underwater.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, all of you, for being on the panel, and thanks for listening and watching. And we'll see you next Monday. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.